recorded live.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you may be across the nation or around the world. Once again, you're listening to the VMware Communities Roundtable Podcast. This is podcast number 653. My name is Eric Nissen, and with me today, I have my regular co-host, Matt Lungeth. Today is Wednesday, July 12th, 2023. Matt, good to have you back.
Eric, it's good to be here. It's good to be seen. If I have a little bit of the post-COVID sniffles and sound a little nasally, forgive me. But I was overseas for a couple of weeks and with one of our guest employers, ITQ, and a great VMUG event that they put on, the VEUC TechCon. I'd like to take a minute and thank Johan van Amersfoort and Jesper and Jordan and the whole crew that's responsible over at ITQ and the VEUC TechCon leadership for putting together what was a fantastic event over in Utrecht, over in the Netherlands. So great to be back. Great to be here. How are you, sir? My favorite questions. What's the weather out there on the West Coast? How are you doing? And what is the color of the day?
Well, I'm doing fantastic. I just got done with a mini vacation, went to Vegas of all places, and was in the Mandalay Bay hotel, which I've always used to send a Luxor or the Excalibur because I'm cheap when it comes to community budget. But when I go on vacation, I guess my wife makes me stay in a better one. It was nice. It was beautiful. We had a family reunion, 150 people. The weather here is dead on summer. We're into the 80s. You know, in the desert, it was like 105, 106 in Vegas. So the weather is warm, hot, kind of dry now. So yeah, we're getting into traditional California summer. And yes, I did visit the Pinball Museum. Tony Foster asked if I did, and I did. And I have some learnings and takeaways that we'll talk about in a minute. But the color of the bay, well, it is just a dark, nice light green, sunny summer weather, not too windy, no chop, just smooth and nice. People out sailing on the bay over the weekend. It was pretty. So we're that. On the show today, before we get too far, we're going to be talking about what is HSX and how does it work. We've got Luciano.
I believe HCX.
HCX. Did I not say HCX? What did I say?
HSX.
HSX.
Which may be an unannounced product that's coming out of the BU that we haven't heard about as of yet. Stay tuned.
No, HCX. Sorry. And Luciano is here with us. We'll talk to him. He's a senior consultant and solution architect with ITQ. So we'll get to him in a minute. But before we do that, we'll do some shout outs to Explore, which is going to be in Vegas. I would say that there have
40 days. We are 40 days away from the start of Explore. I can't believe it.
It is 40 days. And the strange thing for me is that we're like, Explore is the back half of the year. Like that's coming into the holiday season, right? We do Explore US, we do Explore Europe, and then there's Christmas. And I'm like, wait, what? How do we get here so quickly? So, but we're not really here yet because it is 40. It's another month away.
Session builders out there, that just opened up this week. So if you haven't,
I've been told
looked at your session catalog as of yet.
I've been told that the code sessions are all sold out. So the ones we ran on GPT chat API consumption, that's this year's fun code session that we're doing to teach you how to program and write code. We've got that one. Yeah, and that one has been sold out. The Venue team came to me yesterday and said, could we add more slots? And I can't really because we got it in the community booth this year. So nope. No, probably not. Maybe we'll figure out how to do it. I don't know. But that's cool. So it's up. Schedule builders out. Content calendars out. Schedule builders out. People are booking stuff. And again, we are watching. And if the sessions get booked, the event team comes to the owner of the session and says, "Hey, how about doing another one?" Right? And so if you go in and get yourself scheduled. That'll give other people a chance to maybe get extra because we get the feedback that that's a popular session. So we're excited about that. We have the booths, the hackathon, everything is a green. We're trying to get the latte bar in the booth this year. We got the 2 theaters. If you've ever been there, we also have Vanguard there. It's a big hub area. It's bigger than we traditionally have done. It's going to be crowded. It's going to be fun. We got the Pinball Museum. I went to the Pinball Museum in Vegas and checked it out. It's huge. Like it's, they moved to a building on the Strip. and it's down by the Mandalay Bay. We'll talk about that in a second. I'll talk about that in a second.
So this is a new venue from where we were at, and what would have been 18?
Yeah, that's right. They moved to a big new facility. It's a warehouse about half the size of a Costco, right? It's like big, high ceiling, looks like a Costco warehouse when you go in it, right? It's big. And I think it's 3 or 4 times bigger than the old pinball museum. And they have, now a tournament area. I tweeted it. If you follow me on Twitter, Eric and I Pro, you can go see pictures they've got a tournament area where they have 10 different pinball machines, all the same pinball machines wired in together, and a leaderboard and a scoreboard. So you can go in and, play against each other. And then, they have the traditional other games, that are out there. So yeah. And then I think they acquired a bunch of new games. So it was interesting when I was there, not half, but a third of the pinball machines were not on, either because they're trying to save power, right? Or they're still working on them, because I think when they moved into this place, it's so big that they need a lot of other pinball machines and other video machines to fill it up. So I think they're filling it up, and they're working on and bringing them up to speed. And I don't know if it's because some of them were clearly just powered off. When I think
some might say that's a workload and capacity issue, but
yeah. I think it was just and I did talk to the owner, because they donate the profits to the Children's Hospital in Vegas. So they, so I found him, right. I was like, and when we went in the old pinball machine, he's like, oh yeah, 70% of this money is just going right to the hospital, right? Like they had a really low operating. So I talked, the owner was there, same guy, that retired guy runs around. He's running around fixing machines, and had a couple of guys with him, his proteges. And I asked him, he knew right away. I said, hey, American, we're renting the place sometime in August. I didn't even say VMware. He goes, oh, you're the VMware people. Yeah, thanks. Like, and so he knew of us. It's a big thing for him. And I was like, oh, are you still donating profits to the hospital? He goes, well, we normally do that, but since we moved into the big venue and we had COVID at the same time, we're still trying to unbury ourselves. Right? So, from
looking at your pictures on Twitter, the facilities from where they were in to this new space is night and day.
Night and day.
I mean, absolutely night and day. I remember we were literally in the back where we had the barbecue and whatnot to be outside. And I mean, it was a neat venue. Don't get me wrong at the first facility, but this is quite the step up, with hopefully many more games and a lot more of a space to mingle and see friends and make new ones.
So, and I know we're talking all this because the community party, we're pulling it all together. It's going to be VMUG, it's going to be VXpert,
right,
plus Vanguard, right? So VMware Vanguard, and then we've invited everybody else, right? So it's like 1,000 people that are invited to the party this year. The problem is the Venetian is at the other end of the strip. Right. So the Venetian is on the other end. The Mandalay Bay, where the Pinball Museum is, just across the street from the Mandalay Bay and 1 block over, 1 block down the strip. You got to walk 1 block down from the Mandalay Bay.
Hall on foot.
On foot. Yeah. Yeah. So I did the trains. I went and did it just to see, because I've been getting feedback. Like, aren't we going to rent buses for everybody? And I'm like, I can't rent buses for 1,000 people, right? So there is a tram from the Venetian. You walk across the street and down 1 hotel. So you got to go on the strip, down a hotel, which is south, or I guess west, past the Flamingo, into the Bellagio, right?
Right.
And in the Bellagio, there is a tram entrance, right? And then you get on the tram. So you do a block and a half from the Venetian, and just to get out to the Venetian, it's a block walk just to get out to the strip. Then you got to walk down a block and into the Bellagio, through the Bellagio.
Yeah, go past Caesars and then to the Bellagio, and the backside of Bellagio. Then you're on the backside of Aria.
Yeah, and then you get on the tram. And that takes you down to the New York, right? So then you get out the New York, and you walk across the New York. There's a land bridge or a bridge at that level. You go through the casino of the New York, and then across over to the other side, which I forget what that hotel is, across, the strip. Go into the castle one. What's the castle? Get the hotel name.
That one.
It's the Excalibur. Thank you, Graham.
Okay.
That go to the into the Excalibur, and there's another shuttle that takes you all the way down to the Mandalay Bay. Mandalay Bay. Get off the Mandalay Bay, walk outside, down, and then one block over, and you're there. So do you know how many step count I had after I did both directions, right? I went from the Mandalay, I walked down, went up. I had 20,000 steps.
That's a haul.
That equates to like 8 miles, right? Like in my step count, right? So it is a walk to get to the Pinball Museum because it's on the opposite end of the street, and that includes using the trains, right? Like that's just the walking to get through the hotels to the. It was a journey. So there have been discussions.
Uber, there's Lyft.
There's Uber, Lyft.
Everybody can get together and pull some rides. Sure.
Right. And so that's what we're doing right now. We're trying to figure out whether that's plausible for people. Will that impact how many people come? And the answer is no. You're probably going to take an Uber, or you're going to take a cab, or you're going to take that train system, and it's going to be, I think it's going to be 30 minutes, maybe 25, 30 minutes to get down and 30 minutes to get back if you're walking, and then add another 25 minutes in there of being lost, right? So Tony Foster says, could we do a map? So we will do a map and get you some instructions for that. And I did do it. It is doable, but it's also probably a great Uber return back. Yeah. And maybe we'll get I think it's $15K to run buses back and forth. So we'll try to deal with that. Maybe we'll try to find $15K and set up, and then the 2 buses would run continuously that loop all night long. That's a lot of pizza, right? So I got to see where we land on budget wise, but we'll go with that. Enough of that. Enough of Explore. Excited. November 6th through 9th. Go register. That's Explore Europe, August 21st through 24th. I booked myself. Get your tickets. Hotels were reasonable. The block, I think, was only $160 a night for
block disappears on Friday. So Friday the 14th, right. If you're listening to this late, if you haven't gone through the process, that pre-reserved block will disappear on the 14th. So get your registration in and get your hotel accommodations booked. Otherwise, you could be in for even more of a walk, depending on which venue and price point you choose for accommodations.
That's right. All right, let's get to our main guest. What is VMware HCX and how does it work with Luciano Patrão? I don't know how you say that. Luciano, welcome to the show. Give us your, who are you? How long have you been in the VMware ecosystem? What does your career arc look like? And then we'll get to your blog article, which is on provirtualzone.com. Go check that out. What is VMware HCX and how does it work. Just go Google it, go to his blog site and check provirtualzone.com. Luciano, tell us about yourself.
Hi, Eric. Hi, Matt. Thank you for having me. This is my second time I've been here in this community podcast. I think the first one was number 608, I think. So thank you again to have me again. My name is Luciano Patrão. That's how I spell it. Patrão, yeah. I'm ITQ worker. I've been working as a senior consultant and solution architect in ITQ. I work with VMware since 2005, 4, 5, 6. I don't remember, from the previous old ages. So I'm more than 20 years in IT. And I'm a blogger.
Excellent. That's exactly it. And right, you were on 608 8, I believe. 608.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
vSphere 7 unsupported supports SD cards with Luciano. Right, there you go. That's it. What date was that? We should look that up and see what date.
Was a year ago, roughly.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about your blog. How often do you blog?
Well, I try to do it kind of at least 2-3 per month, but sometimes I can't. Sometimes I can do one per week. It depends on my schedules. And since I also write articles for other companies, for other sites, so sometimes I don't have too much time. I am also writing a book, so that's also take me some time now for VMware, of course. And so I try to do it at least in the end of the year. I try to have 2-3 media per month. So that's what I try to do. So
nice.
Sometimes I can, sometimes I can't. So.
Right. Okay, so let's talk about VMware. What is HCX and how does it work? What inspired you to do the blog article, and what were you trying to solve with that?
Well, I did work with HCX a couple of times, but I had a project some last October, November, I think. So it was a kind of HCX project, big one, and did a lot of work, did a lot of planning, did a lot of stuff that we sometimes, even we work with a tool, we don't know everything, and then most of the times you have problems, issues that you learn on the project where you're working. So that's why I got my ideas to have some HCX blog. I was a call it blog series where I talk about about HCX, and this one was one of them, to explain people what is HCX and how this can help companies to achieve their workloads and migrations from applications, virtual machines, whatever they need to do from on-prem to cloud, on-prem to on-prem. It depends on the scenario. Yeah.
Luciano, the use case that you had for that particular customer, so the initial deployment, were they looking at moving from on-prem to on-prem? Were they moving from on-prem up to a hyperscaler? Yeah. What was the use case, and were they just migrating existing VMs and also the data disk that goes with them? Were they re-IPing? What's a little bit more of the detail there?
Okay, so the initial project that they started, the initial idea is to migrate everything from a legacy VCF. So they had, this is physical stuff. So you have some 6.7 vSphere, so they need to migrate to the new environment. That's one of the scenarios use case that we can use for the HCX when you have like stuff that you still have your infrastructure in 6.5 or 6.7. You can migrate to your new environment. It's a 7, 8, depends on what you are deploying, and then you can just use HCX for that. In this case, was the customer
so we're
was
talking
a bank.
about disparate vCenter versions, right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah. Well, one part of the project was also to cloud, because they need to rebalance some workloads. That's another use case that HCX can also implement it. So, but roughly it was, I don't know, maybe 80% of the work was, the migrations was from VCF to VCF. Let's put it on simple, vCenter to vCenter. That's it.
So I just want to up level for people in the commercial space that might not even know what HCX is. Why don't we just mention for a second, what does HCX stand for, and what is the product itself?
Well, HCX was today called VMware HCX. Before was a hybrid cloud extension, but that's a name that doesn't, VMware just move it to VMware HCX now. So HCX is a tool that companies can use to migrate. This is basically this it can use to migrate their workloads, use as a migration tool, use as a rebalance your workloads, like 50% on your physical environment, 50% on your cloud, or you can use as a replication, also as a DR. So, and now with the new 4.5, 4.6, you can also use to do NSX migrations. If you have a NSX V, you can use an extension on HCX. It's called Migration V2T, NSX V2T. So you can use a vCenter to migrate all their networks and VMs from a NSXV to NSXT. This can be done with this migration tool from NSX. That's very complicated to use, and HCX is more easy to use. But of course, it depends on the scenario. Not every time you can use that, but it's one of the cases that we can use it. So basically, it's a tool to migrate your workloads from your on-prem to the cloud, back from the cloud back to the on-prem, whatever you want to do. That's the scenarios you can use HCX. And then we're talking about applications, VMs, whatever you're running on your on-prem. Also, you can migrate KPVM and Hyper-V environments also to VMware. So there is also a feature that also can migrate this other system operations or hypervisors.
Got it. All right, that makes sense. So it's a all-in-one package to manage your mobility of your VMware footprint, right? And then some extensions to allow you to bring in other VMs from Microsoft or other platforms into your VMware footprint, and your VMware footprint can be on the cloud or it can be on-prem, and gives you tools to move those back and forth. So if you just want to set up high availability, right, you could use this tool to manage all of that as well. Right?
Mm-hmm. Correct. Yeah. Correct.
Okay. Cool. Makes sense. In your blog article, HCS feature categories, it seems like they have workload mobility, which makes sense. Like, how am I moving my workload around? Which I kind of understand that, in your list: cold migration, bulk migration, vMotion, replicated assist vMotion, OS assisted migration, mobility groups, migration. Those are all the workload mobility capabilities in HCX.
Well, those are the type of migration you can do with HCX.
Right. Makes sense.
What's the most common that you've seen, Luciano, as far as out there in the field? More bulk migration, or it really just depends on the customer's use case? I mean, this
depends
tool
on the customer,
into so many things from what it was originally.
Yeah. Originally, correct. You're correct. So originally it was built for migration. That's it. That was the initial idea of this tool. Then grew for different features. Then now is going to do, like I said, as a network also migration to DR, etc. But what it depends on the customer and on the applications, because if you have applications that are very critical, of course they will use
sure.
Yeah, they will use the vMotion or RAF, because this all online users or the application never goes down. When the source finish the replication to the destination, it will just shut down the destination, and the source will pop up, and then everything was running without any downtime. That's one of but those are more difficult to implement because needs a lot of work, needs a lot of planning, networks, and etc. with the teams for the applications, databases, everything. So the planning here is also important. But generally, we see is bulk migrations. That's a normal. This bulk migrations is a migration that is vMotion from one side to another, is like a replication from site A to site B. After the site B is finished, power off the site A and power on the site B. So, but that will have a downtime. The downtime is like a restart of the VM or the application. So we have also always a small downtime, is just the time for the system operation to power up, and then all the application, etc. So those are the most used. Yeah.
Nice. Okay, so the next one in the categories, networking, right? And the WAN optimization. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, WAN optimization is when we use I will say like this. First, was built to use on low bandwidth networks and migration. So if a communication between two data centers that are far apart from site A to site B, and the bandwidth is not so big, we use one, because one will deduplicate and will send the package will reduce the duplication. The package that they are sent from site A to site B are smaller, and then of course when they arrive on the site B, it will decomplicate it, and then they will be the normal VM. It was built for that. But today we use almost every time, because companies have so much data that exists today that the data that needs to be transferred from site A to site B is huge, and these migrations most of the times are huge migrations. We talk about thousands of VMs. By the way, a vMotion or a migration can only be done three VMs at a time. We can build different more than one manager, HCX managers, but each one only can handle 300 VMs at the same time. So the amount of data that it needs to be transferred from one side to another, that's why most of the time we use one to reduce the data that will be transferred from one side to another.
Line conditioning. Okay. Makes sense. Just looking at your article here, right? Like nice diagrams, good capacity. When we talk about successful migration, right, you have a section here called to perform successful migration. Here are the key steps. You give us kind of the key steps. In the world of you doing this, what are some of the problems that people have that get in the way of success?
Number one, particularly if you're working with banks, firewall and ports blocking the migrations. That is the number one. So there is a number of ports that need to be opened from the source and the destination, and when the planning is not properly done, we have always problems. The destination can they can communicate, everything is set, but when you try to migrate, there will again another block. And the good thing about HCX is it has a monitor feature that you can really know where is the block. So if the block is between HCX has like 4 or 5, it depends on the feature you are using. Some applications. One application with the name of what's the name of the VM? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think it's 5 VMs. I'm not 100% sure. That is, it's not the VMs, it's appliance. So there's 5 appliances. Each appliance has its own features. They need to be work with specific reports to the destination, to the vCenter, from the vCenter to the VMs, and etc. And all those are the problems that we see is the ports that are not networking. Also, if you are using let's say reapplying IPs, that's another thing that you can have problems, because you have subnet on the source. On the destination, if you're going to use the same IPs, then it's okay, it's easier. You don't need to use the network extension. But if it's a different IPs, then we have to use some of the network extensions. That network extension is like a layer 2 connection between both sides, and then they can see each other without any problems. Also, the applications can have problems on the new sites, because most of the applications, when you move it, it depends if they have a MAC address, IP address bound to the application. Also, those are some of the problems also we can see. Yeah, that's why planning is very, very important here.
Yeah, I would assume that, a project like this, you would break it up into segments as well, right? I mean, you would
correct. Yeah.
A given subnet or given a group or set of, racks of machines that you're managing that workload and deploying it so that, and then you just have an outage. Yeah, I hear these stories, that we went in and we did this and we started in the morning and by 2 PM we were all done and everything was migrated, right? Like, and we shifted the workloads. Yeah, in a day. That's reasonable.
If you're lucky, of course. If you are lucky, but yes, you can. Like I said, we did like thousands of VMs, and I will say 10 times we tested. We tested 7 times, maybe everything goes smoothly. Of course, there are always problems on 2 or 3 times that we need to migrate. Then, of course, we need to address all those issues. But for the migration, let me just say this. But for the migrations, because you need to divide your VMs and applications by critical. If you're going to migrate VMs that are not critical, we can just use a different type of migration. If you're going to use VMs applications that are very critical, then you need to use the vMotion that was always live. But that's why we need to talk with the teams of the applications and the databases. Everyone needs to be on board, networking, of course, and we need to identify all the VMs and groups of VMs that need to be, there are priority to, let's say, red, yellow, green means that red is very critical. They cannot go down. That's one of the main things that we need to plan before anything.
Luciano, with either the traditional vMotion or bulk migration, have you ran into any instances where the data change rate for a particular critical application was so high that the replication was failing, or you were running into replication problems because of so much I/O traffic on one site that then had to carry across to the other? Or is this fairly resilient, even with higher I/O workloads?
Yeah, even with I/O is very resilient, but it's not bulletproof. Of course, there is always something that will happen. We had I think it was a couple of VMs applications. There was so important, and the I/O was so high that the migration was done, but when it was to be finished, always had some issues. So the decision was to rebuild on the source side because the application was so heavy that was important. No, it was not the application itself, was more the database. So that's why we need to move the database and then just do the migration of the application
that then points
correct.
to the DB.
Yeah,
okay,
correct. That was one of the decisions because it was a huge. I can't remember the site, but we talk about so many teras that this was a huge number. So honestly, it was the biggest one I've seen. So this is one of the things that, again, on the project, always we need to follow, and then we need to adapt because there will always be issues, and then we need to adapt and find a way to bypass that. This is the way. In this case, was just the case.
As many tools now that we have in the HCX toolbox, if you will, we're not going to cover everything, right? They're always, that's why we have to take that kind of analyst approach, if you will, talk with those individual applications owners for both of what we're going to do as far as pre-staging, and even above and beyond that. I think some of the times that we think about this as, okay, now we stood the application back up on the secondary site, or we migrated it up to a hyperscaler or whatnot. Well, what does that mean once it's there? What does the run book look like to power it back on? And then what's the success criteria in determining if the application is valid, right?
Yeah.
We migrated the VMs, the VMDKs look good. Right now, the machine power is on. Well, who's available to test it, right? Is the application ever included in part of this process to check the box and say, that this DB or this ERP app is then working and then up to snuff?
Well, we can only test the operation system, VM, and all the database if it's connecting, if it's working. The rest, It needs to be done by the application owners. They need to be done.
Which
but
is
also
part of that discussion. Sure.
Yeah, correct. So, but sometimes that goes to the discussion of what can go to the cloud, because some customers just think that just everything goes to the cloud, everything is smoothly. Is not the case. And then that's why also HCX is also good, because if you do need to roll back, if you send, let's say, 100 VMs to the cloud, and then now you notice that was not a good decision, then for which the same time you can send from on-prem to the cloud, you can also roll back. Just send back to your. An example, a use case is that I had some time ago one of these projects. They had an old environment, so like 6.7 also. So they need to build a new one. So while they were building a new one, they were not able to migrate it right away. So the decision was to migrate to the cloud, rebuild all the data center. After the data center is built, they roll back again everything from the cloud to the data center. That's another good example of how you can use the HCX. And then, like I said, you can rebalance your workloads within 50%, 40%, 60%, whatever you want to do. But if you decide that it's too much on the cloud or it's too much you can always roll back, send back. That's the beauty of this tool. It's really manageable.
Multiple points with that. One, in the States, we think about, compliance and regulation with programs like payment card registry, PCI, DSS specifications. So it's not only so much about failing over, but then failing back and demonstrating that progress. And many a point has been made that sometimes that fail back is harder than the fail over. So be able to orchestrate tasks like this. And then larger projects like that we talked about, moving to some of these hyperscalers where we don't necessarily, you go out and you buy, I don't know, let's say 50 nodes of a VxRail deployment, and it's a sunken fixed cost. And you don't want to be in the business of operating data centers, and you move out to one of our hyperscaler solutions where each individual one of those components is now taxed, not to mention your data ingress and egress. And sometimes once that's now calculated, those bills can be very surprising.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Right. So that data portability of moving off of one of those hyperscalers, or perhaps, hey, even at that, now that we were on Azure and we want to move to GCVE or GCVE over to AWS, right? The idea of workload mobility. Yeah. And then third, multi-cloud. And third, of course, when we start to tearing into some of these enterprise applications that are legacy, they're giant, right? They have a million different hooks into them as far as internal API calls or printing routines or where data is offloaded. And the minute that you start to, deconstruct that as far as network connectivity, you think you might have it documented, but there's always the closet hook, if you will, that's out there. That somebody wrote a one-off routine that does this certain thing that generates an individual report that ends up on a C-suite executive that's once a week. That's absolutely critical for the business. We start to tear apart these constructs, and we better have a means to roll them back if necessary if things don't go right. So yes, of course, that this bilateral communication that we have with HCX is critical as far as its functionality.
Yeah, and also some of these applications we're talking about, like maybe 15, 20 years ago, they already P2V, from physical to virtual. Most of them were like adapted, but not built for this kind of. And then and then again, we are doing from virtual to cloud. It's virtual, but it's a different environment. So again, the applications are so old that sometimes they cannot fit. Yeah,
they don't necessarily want to do a rewrite. They don't want to build that up as cloud native.
Yep. So this is all the fun, I will say, of multi-cloud and migrations of workload to the cloud. That's when you work on this, a lot of stuff that will happen, and you need to decide what is the best approach. And after, even when you decide when is the best approach, when you are implementing and you are on the day basis of the migration on the project, you might notice that this was not the best approach, because the application or the VMs that you're planning or databases are not like you're supposed to be, or the information that they provide, like you said, most of the time they just old documentation that doesn't fit anymore on daily basis today. And then you need to adapt your implementation and
there has to be a rollback strategy, right?
You
can do your due diligence, you can plan, you can talk to the application owners, and then there's the actual movement. And then once you actually move that out there, okay, did this go to plan or didn't it?
Oh, come on,
what's our rollback strategy? Oh, it's always perfect.
Yeah, of course.
There's no need for consultants.
How many times have I ever rolled back? Never. I just live with broken stuff on the new end. Right?
Yeah.
That's called job security. Right? Like we're just why not?
Everything will be automated. Oh, now what?
A layman's question for you guys, because as I listened to this, right, and I was following along. When you say test, right, like what does that test actually mean? I know there were like simulation runs you used to be able to do with some of this stuff, where you could click and say, hey, I want to simulate. Well, things will move over. Do I have enough data? It'll go through checks. I assume that's not the case here. More like I just try to run things, and does everything get over, and then I try to boot it up. But like, when you say test, what do you mean by that?
I can give you an example of this huge project that we did. We had a POC, so we need to have an environment just for this test. Before we touch the production, we need to build two environments.
You build a whole staging environment. And
then
you run
we're talking about, this is not every project does this, because this is, like I said, this is a huge project. So in the bank, of course, that's on top of that is more responsibility and very critical. So the POC was built just for this. You can test everything, and then when you know that this will be 100% sure that will work, then you go to the production and then start implementation on the production. Before that, we just do that. But you can run this migration as a test. You don't need to power on the other side. You just run as a test, and then if the migration is done,
you got enough storage.
That's it.
Showed up.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. And I wasn't thinking about staged versus production. Typically we would stage things on our end, right, and go run it on staged, make sure things.
Well, for smaller, of course, the smaller projects, maybe that doesn't make sense. But
and as you mentioned, the buckets of critical, right? Whether you got critical apps, whether you got like non-critical apps, and we do that as well. Like if it doesn't make it, it doesn't matter if it's down for a day while we figure out what was wrong, right? Yeah. That sounds good. How do you get HCX? Is HCX just bundled up with an enterprise edition, or like where do we get HCX?
Well, in HCX, if you have an enterprise license from NSX, then you can use HCX. But if you want to use something like OSM, I don't know if you say OSM or just OSM, when you need to migrate Hyper-V, KPVM, etc., then you need a HCX enterprise license. That's different. If not, you can just use the NSX license, and you can use HCX. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. As we, have fun with this podcast, question for you is, do you get to, I noticed on your, first I'll go, I noticed on your blog on this, you do have a session at the bottom of it where you did, what do we call that, a whiteboard or a lightboard session? That they recorded you on HCX. So that means that you must be somewhat famous in the land of the whiteboard session.
Not famous, yeah. Well, that's a session that we did in ITQ. We have a studio for this.
So we did that with a really nice studio.
I think it's really nice, also really nice, very professional.
It is.
And I did that one in that session. I did that one in also one with VCDR, with Stefan from VMware. So I think we do like 2-3 times a year. We gather a bunch of VMware guys and also from some guys from ITQ. we just gather in and just do some videos and some whiteboards. I love to do that.
Yeah,
Even I'm always nervous. I'm always nervous doing, but I love to do that.
Right. That makes sense. That's smart to have that because those really stand out, and it is kind of fun to look at it where normally when I'm looking at whiteboards and people drawing, you're in the way or somebody's in the way and it's too small and you can't really see the diagrams very well, where it's just so crystal clear when you're drawing the drawings on the light board that you can see what's going on. So nice job there. Yeah, got that. All right. That was
again a link to that video is at the bottom of the blog article. So if we're over at Pro Virtual Zone, all one word, provirtualzone.com, and you search out for the What is VMware HCX series, scroll to the bottom of that blog post, and you can see Luciano's Lightboard session on this topic.
Nice.
Thank you.
Next question I have for you is, what version is HCX at now, and are you expecting that VMware will continue to release improvements to the product? Or
they say they're always I'm not working directly for it. I'm not a VMware employee. Even I'm doing some works for VMware, but today is 4.6.3.
Okay.
And
how often do they come out? How often?
Even the 4.6, they launch the 2 and the 3 very quickly. So this is a tool they are putting a lot of effort, and also they are trying to improve it to do different stuff. And I'm pretty sure they will more now because of the HCX Plus, also the vSphere Plus. Everything is Plus for VMware now. I'm pretty sure they will adapt more features to work with this HCX tool.
Sure, that makes sense. Next question for you: are you going to get to go to Explore this year?
Well, for sure. I also apply for 4, 5 sessions. I don't know. I'm still waiting. Let's see if I get any.
Yeah, don't know.
One is about HCX, by the way.
Nice. All right. Well, we'll have to wait and see, I guess. Like I know they had a couple rounds of inviting people in, so it's you haven't gotten a rejection yet, so that's good.
Yeah, at least that. Yeah. I'm still on the middle zone. No, yes, no.
Do you make an attempt to go to Vegas, or are you just going to go to Barcelona?
No, just for Barcelona. No, just for Barcelona.
Yeah, makes sense, right? And that one's going, and they did ask us to go book travel for the Barcelona one. So looks like we're starting to ramp up on that as well. Get some of the travel costs amortized in Q2. So excited about that.
Last year we went I think it was almost 90 people from ITQ to Barcelona. It was a really huge orange sea. Yeah.
Right. Any other topics that you're going to blog about coming up that we could talk about? What are people watching from you?
Well, I'm still my HCX series is not finished. I think I need a couple of them to finish the full process. And I'm trying to focus now more in cloud. At least I try to go there more. So maybe I will write more about cloud and multi-cloud. VCDR, there's another subject that I like a lot. And I'm also trying to get some writing about one of my next ones is on draft. It's about VCDR also. So maybe that will be the next one.
Matt, what else should we talk to Luciano about? We got a couple more minutes.
I do have a question since we briefly touched on the topic. Have the community sessions or community session submissions for Barcelona been opened up as of yet? Or if you submitted for a session for the US, would it also be considered for Europe? What's the current state of that this year?
You're asking me?
I am asking you.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm not the best one to answer that one.
So the community sessions when at vBrownBag, if you go to vBrownBag and you submitted your sessions, there was a checkbox for US and Europe. You could checkbox both of them, and then we would get to see that and invite people. We are doing VBrownBag is still questioning whether they're going to get funding to go to Europe, but I think they are because they got funding to the US. So it's good. So I know there's checkbox. I think there's still plenty of openings for VBrownBag. If you want to go submit a Europe talk, you can because we're not full, right? And they don't have that. I think that we got 35 sessions or 40 sessions submitted, and we accepted almost everything for your US, and only about half of the ones that were submitted were checkbox for Europe. So that means there'll be still plenty of session slots left for VBrownBag.
So for
maybe I will
friends
apply
out there
also for
that situations like Luciano, where you submitted for the main show and you're going and you still want to be able to present your material, consider going through the VBrownBag site and putting your content in there. There could be an opportunity for you to do a presentation at the community booth.
Yep, and then for VMware Code, same scenario. There is a different link to submit for Europe, and we will be publishing that and looking for European sessions as well. So, and there is still session openings there as well. They will fill up. So if you're listening to this and you want to do a community session, there's still openings in Europe. US is booked, so we are 100% booked. It's in Schedule Builder, and like I said, some things are filling up like the Code Lab. So things are there.
And Luciano, we had talked about your blog site over at provirtualzone.com. Are you out on any other the social channels such as Twitter or LinkedIn? And if so, would you like to share your handles with our audience so that they can follow along with you?
Yeah, I can share my Twitter.
What is that, sir? What is your Twitter handle?
It's Luciano_PT.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
And LinkedIn is Luciano Patrão, that's my name. So I think I have also a Facebook for my page, but it's something only I just share the content that I share in Twitter. I just send also for the Facebook page for the Pro Zone also. So
tweet that out, and then if persons that are on that platform that want to follow along via that method, they have a means of doing so.
Yeah. Right. I know we're at coming up to the top of the hour. So because we do live stream on YouTube, youtube.com/VBarbecue. BARBECUE. You can go look at and see what Luciano looks like. But we talk barbecue because it's lunchtime here in California. So, or in the case of Matt, we talk about gas grilling. So let's
that reliable method that works every time. How is your charcoal?
Well, let me tell you
problem lately, dear friend.
Matt, I took apart my Traeger.
How many hours did that take you?
3-4 hours. It was fine. It was a Saturday project. It was a DIY thing. The corkscrew that feeds the pellets had been left out in the rain and it got rusted, and it was binding with the nice soft white plasticky sleeve that that acts as a bearing. So I fixed that, and then I made some 4th of July barbecue ribs that were just crazy good, man. Let me smoke them for 7 hours. It was
I'm also a fan of only cold barbecues. Sorry.
Yeah, cold barbecue. Yeah, it's the way to go.
I'm on vacation, and then every day I did barbecue since I'm here. All day, every day.
It's only on Amazon to get Matt a Traeger. The Traeger's only like $350 US. So for Christmas, Matt, I'm just gonna have him drop ship a Traeger for you, with a bag of pellets. So that you can
I'm not gonna look that gift horse in the mouth. I mean, if a Traeger shows up, I will say that I had an immediate family.
You're gonna try to connect it to your gas line to your house and see.
No, I mean, again, I respect the pain that you folks go through to produce a meal and the 7 hours and all the cleaning and everything else you have to go into it. Meanwhile, I'm just enjoying my food.
Correct.
But hey, to each their own.
Let me tell you, man.
But the food tastes better. Sorry.
It's yeah.
Oh, I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
I'm just not one to outweigh convenience over torture right now.
Yeah, but we need to have is more work. Yes, that's correct.
Once you try the IPA or the other customized beer, it's hard to go back to Miller time. So we'll get you there. We'll definitely we'll get you there. Luciano, so you do like smart? Do you ever get to barbecue?
Well, I yesterday I did fish because I'm on a fish side.
Nice.
Because I'm vacations on back home in Portugal. I'm Portuguese, by the way.
Right.
So yesterday was the only day I did fish. The rest of the days I didn't meat. So nice. Because fish is more difficult. Coal is more difficult because
controlling the fire is
you
difficult.
need to be a very experienced fire to do this. Yeah. It's more work. The double time of the work. So
yeah, definitely is.
But I love it.
Yeah, excellent. All right. Well, Tony Foster, I know you've been out there. Any news from Kansas?
Yeah. So yesterday it was honey glazed salmon, and it was awesome. Tonight I'm doing chicken thighs.
Can't go wrong with fish is supposed to be eating fish 2 to 3 times a week. So getting the fish oils in your system make you live longer. So that now I don't know when you barbecue it, probably you're getting the carcinogens from the coals to Matt's point, and we're probably equaling out that longevity of having fish oils in your system. But salmon is awesome. I saw an article of how make sure you're getting natural caught salmon. Do not use farm salmon. Do not use it. But we're at the top of the hour, 1 p.m. Luciano, thank you for being here. How do you say your last name again? Luciano Patrão?
Patrão.
Patrão. Beautiful. Thanks a lot for coming. Thanks for doing it on your vacation. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Yep. Thank you very much. And we'll see you in Spain, if nothing else. We'll see you at the community.
Yeah. See you.
All right. Thanks
again. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.